Hi, my name is Phil. I like to talk about politics. And so Keir Starmer, the leader of the opposition, said that he wouldn't be pushing for the government to extend the Brexit transition period next month. This has come as something of a surprise to a lot of people on either side of the debate, particularly within Labour, but especially to those who campaign strongly against Brexit. But what is the reason for him doing so? But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, then please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, over the past few years, the UK has become a lot more partisan. It comes as no surprise, for example, that the bulk of people who, when you look at polling, think that the government are actually doing their best during this pandemic happen to be people who identify as Conservative voters and identify as Brexit supporters. And Brexit, of course, has polarised the country much more than even party politics in the UK. And so any comment from Keir Starmer on extending the transition period will, of course, be met with attacks from whichever side is not in agreement with his position. Now, that said, he isn't calling for the government to extend, which was an absolute head scratcher when I heard this. I thought, what the hell? Seriously? What's this about? And many on the pro-EU side are claiming he's done it to appease the Corbynistas, the strong supporters of Jeremy Corbyn. But that doesn't hold any water. So I'm going to go through that one first of all. So for a start, the vast majority of Corbyn supporters, both past and present, are also pro-EU. They would absolutely want the transition period extending. Even the leadership of Corbyn's cult within Labour, Momentum, wanted Corbyn to strongly oppose Brexit. They actually opposed his stance on Brexit. The idea that Corbynistas, as they're called, are also Brexiteers is not true. What is considered true is that pretty much all of the pro-Brexit Labour supporters are also Corbyn supporters. So it's pretty much a case of the vast majority of pro-Brexit Labour are Corbyn supporters. But that doesn't mean to say that all Corbyn supporters are pro-Brexit. In fact, very few of them are. You know, it's a little bit like the, you know, all dogs are mammals, but not all mammals are dogs. And I think that's where the confusion comes from. So the number of people who want Brexit within Labour, or even among swing voters who might vote Labour at a future election, is actually quite small. And that number gets even smaller when you talk of people who support a no-deal Brexit. That's really, really tiny, which is why, you know, that's what not extending the transition period would ultimately lead to. So actually, there's a lot of people, whether Corbyn supporters or not, around the left that want the transition period extending. So the idea of appeasement, just on that basis, does not hold water at all. He'd be pissing off far more people with this stance than he'd be pleasing. In addition, there were two other reasons, much quicker to explain, why the appeasement response can't possibly be true. One, the Brexit nutters in Labour are opposed to everything Starmer does and attack him at every turn, because from their point of view, it's bad enough that he doesn't have a beard, that he is pro-European and was very anti-Brexit throughout. And, you know, and I don't mean that these people that they're attacking Starmer are being critical. There are people criticising Starmer, which is fine, and that's what you should do, in fact. There is valid criticism. What I mean is deliberately making things up that are easy to verify the untruth of. So you don't even get to say, oh, well, this person told me and it sounded plausible. It never sounded plausible. In other words, tossing these people a bone isn't going to bring them on side. They're resolutely opposed to Starmer. You know, those people are completely lost to him. So appeasement wouldn't work anyway. And two, Starmer recently confirmed that the number one reason for people not voting Labour during the last general election was, as we knew anyway, Jeremy Corbyn. Whether you think that's fair or not, that was actually the main reason cited. If he really wanted to appease Corbynistas, and you were asked a question like that, you would dodge the question like the plague, if you'll pardon the expression. You would not answer it as unambiguously as that. So no, appeasement, no. There has to be another reason. The idea of appeasement in this decision is a complete non-starter that does not hold up to any sort of analysis from any angle. So let's look at the reason he gave for this stance. So what Keir Starmer claims is that he has been unconvinced that the Conservatives can negotiate a deal by the end of the year. That is putting it mildly. But, he says, the government insists that they can negotiate the deal. So Starmer has said that we should hold them to that. So, is what he's saying is he just wants to play the same political football that Corbyn tried to kick around, adopting the notion that if you give the Tories enough Brexit rope, they'll hang themselves. Is he hoping that not extending causes so much political damage to the Conservatives that Labour can just basically walk the next election like Blair did nearly 30 years previously? I personally hope that's not his thinking, because I would not buy into that at all. There is no good reason to suppose that it will work any better under Starmer than it did under Corbyn. So, is there another reason? I mean, what some commentators have said, and this is what has sort of convinced me, they've put it down to simply choosing his battles. Keir Starmer has a lot of battles. There's an awful lot of things you can poke holes in terms of the Conservative government strategies on a whole range of issues. But calling for an extension to the transition period now will not actually influence the government's decision, so it won't change anything. But it just risks diverting attention away from the coronavirus handling. And the right-wing media, if Keir Starmer had come out and said, absolutely, I am calling for the Prime Minister to extend the transition period, and if he used any of his questions at Prime Minister's questions to call for the extending of the transition period, the right-wing media would absolutely love to whip up Brexit supporters further by blasting Starmer for being undemocratic or, something like that, and splash it all across their front pages. It would give them a whole week of material so they didn't have to report on any actual self-inflicted coronavirus calamities. That would be playing into their hands. And I am inclined to agree with that notion. By the time Keir Starmer is gearing Labour up for a tilt at power, I absolutely want Labour policy to be closer alignment to the EU. Preferably rejoining it, but I am prepared to see how the political wind blows before saying exactly what it should be in several years hence. Whether it be rejoining or rejoining the single market. It should at the very least be rejoining the single market and customs union. But my priority remains a Labour government. And it's not like we're gearing up for a general election this year. We're gearing it up for over a series of years. And also, I'm flexible. I don't insist on a Labour government that does exactly what I want. Because apart from anything else, it's not my choice. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Democracy isn't about voting for what you want. It's about voting against what you least want. But anyway, I said at the start of the year, it would do the new leader, before we knew who the new leader would be, it would do the new leader no good at all to adopt this position on Brexit too early. Starmer has several years before he has to publish the Labour manifesto, and this particular argument will be easier to make after the Conservatives have demonstrated their failure, because at the moment a lot of people had already changed their minds over Brexit. They regretted voting for it, but there's no new ones who've done that just yet, because the people who are still for it are now not going to be against it until they see the reality of it. For that, it has to be delivered. Too many people think that the Tories and Boris Johnson know what they're doing. Too many people believe that if Boris Johnson just plays chicken with the EU, that the EU will back down at the last minute. Too many people think that even if they don't, that we can manage on WTO terms only. You can't persuade these people against that, because we've tried for years and it hasn't worked. So they have to see it for themselves. Against a background like that, it could be argued, isn't it better to focus on the more demonstrable examples of Conservative failure, the coronavirus handling, and leave the others for later? Not telling them that what they're doing is going to lead to failure. Wait until the failure happens and then go, look at that. Now, that being said, I personally would still have called for an extension. I'm still surprised that Keir Starmer didn't just say, I think they should call for an extension. I'm not necessarily surprised that he hasn't been hammering in it, and I'm certainly not surprised he hasn't been using Prime Minister's questions to raise the issue, because I worry that the position at the moment means he loses the "I told you so" opportunity when it does all go tits up. But that is a political calculation. It's a political calculation that makes sense. It's not necessarily the one I would have made, but ultimately it looks to me like the reason for it is to keep the media focus on coronavirus and not allow them an easy way to make Brexit cover up coronavirus. It's actually quite ironic because the government would ideally like to use Brexit to cover up their coronavirus failures, and then later on the coronavirus to cover up their Brexit failures. But that is my reading of it anyway. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, then please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.